Things are going to be slightly different for goaltenders in the National Hockey League this season. Some new regulations expected to be put in place this upcoming season, most notably the chest protector. Going to be a little bit different for goaltenders this season. And Kevin Woodley of In Goal Magazine recently caught up with Carey Price to talk about some of those changes and what the new equipment feels like. But before we really dive into that, Kevin, for anyone that's watching that doesn't know what these changes are, what exactly is changing to the chest protector for goalies?
Well, the biggest changes, I think, are around the shoulder areas in terms of more form-fitting and making sure that the shoulder floaters, which is the piece that kind of runs from the belly up over the shoulders, it's narrower. It's 1.5 inches narrower at its widest point. That's a big change. But more specifically, the way they've altered the rules so that it will round and sit over top of the shoulders as opposed to projecting out in front of them. In other words, make everything a little more form-fitting. The shoulder caps can't stick out. There's a regulation that there wasn't one at all before. They can't stick out more than 1.5 inches. So, as wide as your shoulders are as wide as you should look now, as opposed to, some guys with shoulders that stuck out well beyond sort of the natural width of their own shoulders. Mm-hmm. And the arms are narrower. They're tapered in the bicep and into the forearm. And the elbow floaters, that box that you see sort of sitting to protect the elbows at the joint where it flexes, that's a full inch narrower than it was last year.
So, Kevin, before we get into how the goalies feel about that, as a shooter, which I am, and I always look at it from my perspective, will it look different to me? Will I be able to go down on a goaltender and see more net somehow than I would have seen last year?
Yeah, on some guys, and it's gonna depend, honestly, Mike. There are guys in the league that aren't going to look a lot different. There are guys in the league that probably looked how they should have looked, even in the old equipment. And so it will vary from guy to guy, depending, obviously, on sort of their physical makeup. Your sort of true size, and we always talk about goalies getting bigger and bigger in terms of height. Wouldn't be surprised to see, scouts and teams in the future looking at shoulder width. Because now you're only going to be as wide as you are sort of, physically. It's not going to be artificially widened out by the chest protector. You'll probably see a little more area between the arms and the body. That's going to be a hole that's tougher to tighten up than it was before. But I don't think visibly it's going to be a drastic difference. As we saw with Carey the other day, yes, trim, tighten, form-fitting around the shoulders, but not dramatic. You're not talking about taking 3 or 4 inches off most guys.
Well, you mentioned talking to Carey Price as he sort of tested out this new equipment. What was his biggest takeaway from the changes? What was his reaction to the chest protector?
Well, I think kind of what I just said, it wasn't massively different for him. And, to be honest, a couple of weeks earlier, some of the guys were in a different model. I talked about Brossoit and Reimer. They saw bigger changes in their model in terms of the protection around the outer perimeter. For Carey, he didn't think it was that big a difference, which kind of led him to ask the question, did we really need to go this far? Especially considering he still had an area where he felt unprotected, and that was just sort of off the shoulder, on the outside of the shoulder, where the cap didn't round down and the arm protection didn't come up. And that's an area where Roberto Luongo took a sharp angle shot, a number of years ago. We all remember that game where Al Montoya got hurt and there was no goalie and Robbie Tallis almost ended up in net. That was because Roberto had gone to get x-rays on his shoulder from a puck hitting that exact same spot. So some concern there about getting that taken care of. And yet the dialogue that's back and forth with the PA, with Kay Whitmore at the NHL, I think everybody's confident that when they find an area like that where there is exposure, there's a willingness to work with the goaltenders to make sure they get it covered up and that everybody's safe. And that's just going to take a little bit of time as we head into the season.
Well, like anything in life, everybody's got a different opinion, especially when it comes to something like change. Some people deal with it well, other people don't deal with it so well. And I think that's why, you get different reactions and different analysis from different goaltenders. But we have this quote from Matthew Schneider, who said, "Our focus at the NHLPA has always been the safety of the players and fairness in the game. As goalies are just now starting to receive their new gear, we are in contact with them to gather their feedback. This has been a process that's been ongoing for years, and we realize there's still work to be done to get over the finish line." So with that, what is the league doing to address some of those concerns that have been brought up by some of the players?
Well, I think it's just the dialogue. There's a back and forth there. Players have been instructed that if they have a safety concern, they should bring it up with their equipment representative, and that they'll have that discussion then through the PA and through K, like Carey with the arm. It's the kind of thing where, as you put it on, you maybe don't think that that's an area that might be exposed. As you get into game action, you start feeling pucks. James Reimer, in a session we had a couple of weeks ago, mind you, it was Cody Franson on an open release, and Cody can shoot it. But he started feeling pucks on a regular basis. You know how it is, Mike. In games, it's 30 shots, no problem. It's in practice situations where it can be 100+ shots and guys teeing it up in spots they don't often get to, that goaltenders feel less protected. And so if we get to a point where all this back and forth still isn't enough and guys still feel a little vulnerable in practice, it'll be interesting to see if we go to maybe a practice chest protector,
Yes.
more sort of padded undershirts to sort of protect the goaltenders and make sure. I know at least one team has inquired about that already, because currently you're not supposed to have any illegal equipment on the premises, but they've asked, hey, is this an option? Goalies have practice gloves that have more padding in the palm, but of course that doesn't make them illegal because it doesn't make them any bigger. With a practice chest protector, if it changes the dimensions, it's now no longer legal for gameplay. So that's a conversation that I expect them to have on an ongoing basis if guys still feel they need a little more protection. And of course, from the goaltender standpoint, well, they want the protection. They also want to practice in something that holds true to form in a game, so that when they learn in practice through repetition to trust their coverage, they can't have that coverage in terms of an inch here, an inch there, disappear in a game, and all of a sudden the puck's in the net. Their GM and the guys that hand out contracts and the guy that hands out a win at the end of the game doesn't care that it's because, oh, I made that save in my practice unit. So there's going to be, that's an ongoing discussion. I expect there to be different opinions on that from different people.
And very interesting. I did not know that about the practice catcher, the practice blocker. But, I mean, who cares if it's legal in practice? You got illegal sticks out there in practice. Who cares? I mean, whatever happens in a game is something different. But you talk about how long this has gone on, Kevin, and the communication that has to happen, and all the goalies have to get this gear on, get into some skates, give some feedback, get it to manufacturers, different manufacturers. Can this all get done for training camp and then into the exhibition games?
Yeah, because I think, ideally, guys would have had this stuff in July instead of August. But I think the work the NHL and the PA has done over the past couple of years, and there's a lot of people wondering why we didn't do this last year when they brought in the pants, or even sooner than that.
Like me, Kevin, I was one of them.
Well, take a look at that piece that Carey's got on there. There are hundreds of different individual dyes and cuts and pieces that go into making a chest and arm product. So it's not as simple as a pant. The tweaks are bigger. And so it took a little longer. But the way the NHL handled it, the way Kay Whitmore and the way the PA got involved in this, yes, it took longer. But, we've got a 3D scanner in Philadelphia that every unit has to go through before it's approved. And it's almost like car accident reconstruction, where they scan this piece on a dummy, and then, like Matrix style, they can sort of pull it apart. All these hundreds and hundreds of different pieces with individual measurements that Kay Whitmore and the other people involved at the NHL office can now keep an eye on moving forward. So yes, there's changes to be made. Yes, there's going to be tweaks. But they've done this right, in my opinion, to this point, and I think that's going to help sort of get us through this last step. I still think it's possible to get it done for the start of the season. If we have somebody get injured, or if there's a major concern that I'm not foreseeing right now, maybe it gets pushed back a little bit. But right now, I still think this is something that at least the people I talk to think is going to be full pull, ready to go as soon as they drop the puck at the beginning of the year. And there's more companies than there were before that offer an approved product. We've got 2 new manufacturers on board, with John Brown and Kineski, in addition to the originals like Bauer and CCM, and Vaughn and Bryans, who has had an approved chest unit for 10 months. You have all those options out there. I think we're at a point where everybody should be able to find a solution where they feel safe, not just in the games, but in practice, and they're meeting those NHL specifications.
All right, it's fascinating stuff for the goalies union, but also for the players as well, because we're all impacted. But just maybe dumb it down for us, Kevin. In your expert opinion, if these chest protectors go in, what is the increase in scoring going to be? How many pucks are going to find their way in because of it? Or is there going to be any change at all?
I was told there wasn't going to be any math, Mike.
Well, every one of my questions has a little bit in there, Kev.
I don't go past the simple save percentage. I do think you will see an adjustment early on from the goaltenders. Like I said, the arms are more rounded. They're smaller. The chest unit is pulled tighter to you. And you think about it this way. It's not just sealing the body. It's if I feel like I don't have a seal in my body, I'm going to drop into a block earlier. So it's not the pucks that go through the arms. It's the one that go over the shoulders because you went early to seal that shot under the arms. We could be looking at, a marginal increase as guys adjust by the end of the season. At the end of the day, they will, and I don't think it'll be a huge difference. But maybe we can put at least the argument to bed once and for all.